We're joined now by Rapids head coach Matt Wells. We'll go ahead and begin with questions, starting with Braden Norris of the Denver Post.
Hey Matt, how's it going? I have a camera this week.
It's good to see you, Braden.
Good to see you too. What can you tell us about the scrimmage the other day, and what have you seen improve over since the last time we talked, and what still needs work?
Yeah, no, obviously it was good exercise the other day to play the game, and it was a good natural progression for us. We sort of did more minutes than a normal game, so it was good to get everyone 60 minutes pretty much across the board, and a lot of good performances in there, a lot of good information for me as well, and that's obviously shaped some of our training this week. So no, it was a really good exercise.
We'll go to Matt Wickham of Pitcast.
Hey Matt, good to see you. Like the arm movements warming up for the camera before we started.
Yeah, see, I've still got to get to grips with when we have started and when we haven't.
No, keep it up. It's great. So with the scrimmage, getting 60 minutes for players, and the big midfield departure that was made official, but also the midfield entry and Hamzat being there for training and scrimmage. Can you talk about what his contributions have looked like and how the midfield's shaking out?
Yeah, Hamzat wasn't actually there for the game last week, so he's trained this week, and no, really impressed with him. And I think one of the big things that stood out when I first spoke to him was his mentality and the type of character he is was one of the big reasons why I wanted to bring him to the organisation. And he's lived up to the bill in that respect, and he's had 2 really good days of training. Tactically, he actually looks in a good place. So I think the video we did with him over Zoom certainly paid off, and no, delighted to have him here at the club.
We'll go to Keith Richards.
Hey Coach Wells, good to see you again.
How's it going, Keith?
Last time we talked about how you were just starting to implement some of the offensive tactics. Just wondering how that's been going and where you're at with that.
Yeah, I was actually really pleased with the game against Inter Miami in terms of our final third play. There was a big step up from Nashville, which wasn't a surprise, because I think I said before in the build up to Nashville, we didn't actually work in any respect in terms of our final third play. Most of it was about our first phase and second phase build up. So it was a nice progression to see. The build-up stuff was still there, but when we did arrive in the final third, we certainly looked more in sync as a team, and we had a good understanding of the movements that we want to make in an attacking sense. And yeah, we actually scored a couple of nice goals from some of what I hope will become our trademark movements. So it was far from perfect, and there's a lot of work to be done, and that's been a big part of the work we've done so far this week as well, and we'll continue in the build-up to this weekend's game.
We'll now go to John Babiak. John, is your line working?
No sign of John.
Okay, John, we'll come back to you. We'll go to Braden Norris.
Yeah, just an extension of Keith's question. Team-wide, how do you think the team's understanding of your game model has grown since preseason starting? And maybe without singling a player out, I don't want you to do that, but maybe position groups that you're most impressed with, and maybe position groups that you want to see more from in that sense?
Yeah, I think in terms of how the guys are picking up tactically what we want to do, there's definitely signs of it, and that's growing day to day. But there's also mornings like this morning where in the first practice I wasn't best pleased with them today, but I think that's natural. There's a lot of complexity behind what we do and a lot of detail that we're throwing at the guys, so it's certainly not going to happen overnight, and I'm well aware of that, but I'm pushing them every day to try and speed up the process, and there's definitely positive signs. We focused a little bit more with the ball this week, and again trying to just clean up our build up, and there was good things on show in the previous game that we played, but there was also a lot of mistakes that we made and stuff that I feel that by this stage should be a lot more within our control. So as I say, it's going to take time, but we're on the right road.
And then on behalf of John Babiak, John's asking, what are your thoughts on the progress in preseason, specifically fitness-wise?
Well, that's going to continue this afternoon. We've got a we had a two really tough days. I said to the guys yesterday and today are going to be our biggest days of pre-season, and I think that shocked them a little bit because I think they felt that they were through the worst of it. But we had a big session yesterday, but a lot more in tighter areas, high intensity work, a lot of accelerations and decelerations, and then today was about opening up the spaces and a lot more high speed running, a lot more sprint distance. So it was a big session this morning, and we ended with an 11v11, and then we're back out this afternoon. And again, I don't think they'll see this by the time we go out this afternoon. So there'll be no balls out this afternoon. It's just purely physical work. So I'm really excited to see that. I'd like to see where the guys are from a physical perspective. But for me, even bigger than that's their mentality, and to see how they approach this afternoon, even though they've got real heavy legs and tired minds. I want to see them attack the work.
We'll go to Brian Jennings.
Coach, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you, Brian. How are you?
All right, excellent. Great to finally meet you face to face here.
Yeah,
I told you were going to stuck with it at some point.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you.
It's funny, and you just mentioned that. I know you're going to start or end the training on the line, so today's the day for it, huh?
Yeah, no, it's definitely. Well, I mean, this afternoon's going to start on the line. The middle's going to be on the line, and the end's going to be on the line. So, yeah, they're not going to enjoy it, but it's going to be good work.
That's right. Anything kind of along that line, my question, I guess, be any pleasant surprises, anything that the guys are really have picked up quickly that you thought, okay, well, all right, well, we can move on. I didn't expect them to get it that quick, but it's going in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say a really good question. I think the probably two things that jump to mind. One is the underlying principles with the ball. I think they've picked up very quickly. So not so much the positional play or even the system we're going to play, but there's also a set of behaviours that underpin that, and how I want the guys to behave on the ball. And I'll probably sound a bit vague because I'm trying not to give too much away, but I've been really impressed with how they've picked it up, and not just in the structured training, but also then when we've let training run free, like I mentioned, the 11v11 we did this morning. Obviously in that moment I'm just trying to observe, and they're a little less under my control in that moment, so it's good to see how much they have actually learned and how much they're applying, or are they reverting to old habits. And I've been really pleased in that sense. And probably the second thing I'd say to me is the young guys. The young guys have really impressed me so far, and the likes of Wayne Frederick, Jackson Travis having really solid pre-seasons, and there's probably some other guys that I've not mentioned. Kamani the other day had a positive game. So yeah, the young guys have made a really good start as well.
We'll go to Patrick Radigan, footy at 5280.
Hey, Coach, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you.
All right, cool. Nice to finally meet you here.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of follow up on two different things you talked about. You talked about how you're going to press in different ways and how you're going to, find unique ways to kind of implement that. But you've also talked about how you want to impose your style of play and what you have for a game model on other teams. And I've had the pleasure of watching the teams that you've been involved with over the past couple of years, especially under Ange, and seeing how when the game asks for different shapes, different formations, that there's been a willingness to adapt, but to impose the same kind of press, the same kind of mentality. So obviously not asking you to give too much away, but how much are you, set on either looking at one specific way of having a shape, or are you willing to adapt and say, you know what, no matter what the game demands, no matter what the shape demands, we can still impose our style no matter what our shape looks like, as long as we have that same mentality? Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the biggest thing for me is every time we step on the pitch, we're aiming to be the dominant team, and that's, like I think I explained before, there's a lot of different facets to how we do that, and that's part of the education process at the moment for the guys. But for me, it's always about us taking control of the game. We want to have the ball. We want to dominate the ball. I guess we'll be insatiable in our search for that this season. And part of that is how we press. So we have to go after the ball really aggressively, because when the other team has the ball, that angers us, that irritates us, and that's the mentality I want. So we have to be unbelievably aggressive in our pressing, but of course we have to be tactically in sync with knowing the strategy behind how we press. And I guess when I spoke about it before, they're the bits I mean that we'll adapt, and that'll be different. I don't want us to be predictable in our pressing, so a lot of that will come down to our opposition analysis and picking the best pressing scheme for that particular opponent that we're playing. But in every game you'll see us press. In every game you'll see us be hungry to get the ball back, and then once we have that ball, we want to dominate it.
We'll go back to Matt Wickham.
I think it's on mute, Matt.
Yeah, I'll try to get better at that, sir. So a bit of a twofer, just because I wanted to touch on something you said about the young players. The club announced signing Sid Wathuda to a first-team contract. I know Bilo Giap is also in camp. So what have you been seeing with Bilo, and then with Sid particularly, what your outside players' perspective is, your wingers, your fullbacks, how those groups are working complementary, and what you're seeing from them?
Yeah, I think, Sid, I've been really impressed with his versatility, and I actually had a good conversation with him a couple of days ago that we need to make sure that's a strength and not a weakness. So is it because he's versatile, or is it because we need to shape a more clear identity in terms of his play? But at this stage, I'm happy to feel that his versatility, and he has a lot of good technical attributes. He has a lot of good physical attributes, and that allows him to play in different parts of the pitch. So he's had a hell of an exposure so far this pre-season. He actually was left back in training today, so he's had a bit of full-back. He played as a pivot the other day, so he's played central, he's played as a number 10, and he's played on both wings. So I don't think we're going to put him in goal next week, but that would be the full house for him. He's played pretty much everywhere. So really good player, very impressed with him, good mentality, good mindset. He needs to find a little bit more of an edge in his training, but that's all stuff that we're working with him on. And Bilo the same. I think Bilo's had some really impressive moments. I think he needs to find a greater level of maturity in his training, but part of that is also the language barrier, and I'm sometimes a difficult person to understand, so he's had some frustrating moments in training where he doesn't quite comprehend the practices in the same way that the other guys do. But again, that just requires a level of patience from us, and what I've been really pleased about with him is I see his strengths and I see his identity, and he's been a real handful for some of the centre-backs so far in training. So both of those guys have impressed, but they can't be satisfied with that. They've got to keep pushing and keep trying to make an impact.
On behalf of John Babiak and Burgundy Wave, they wanted to ask about your first impressions of Hamzat, and just any updates on positions of need potentially.
Yeah, I think I sort of said earlier, very impressed with Hamzat so far. Not in any way a surprise to me because of the person that I spoke to through the whole recruitment process. It was very clear that he had the right level of ambition, he has the right hunger, he has the right mentality, and then when you watch him play, I don't know if you guys have had the pleasure of watching too much of him, but certainly when I watched him for the first time, I was very, very excited because that's exactly the type of player that I want on the pitch. His commitment to the game, his intensity, his connection to the game, but also very impressed with his technical output. And as I alluded to before, definitely the work that we did from me in my garage back home and doing those meetings with him and talking him through the tactical side of how we want to play, and then also once I was here, those late nights of sending him clips and discussing the practices and the stuff we're trying to implement. I've been really pleased with how quickly he's picked that up from afar, and in the first training session he certainly didn't look dissimilar to our other pivots in terms of the way he's standing, the movements he's making, his timing to arrive, knowing when to turn, knowing when to dribble, knowing what passes to play. So very impressed with his tactical comprehension of the game, and I think if we combine that with his mentality, then we're in a great place. I think physically we have to be patient with him. There's no question he's behind the other guys. But that's also a good sign for me. I think if someone walks through this door and they look fitter than our players, then I'd actually be a little bit concerned. So in a strange way, I'm quite glad that he looks a little bit off it in terms of the physical base, but that's all stuff that we're chipping away at, and this afternoon will be another one of those sessions for him. So yeah, really pleased with that. And I think the second part of the question, that, as I said before, we're going to be active in terms of recruitment and bringing people in. I still firmly believe we need more depth in the squad. We need more competition. as much as I back myself as a coach, I really believe that competition is an even better coach than me, and we have to create an environment here where nobody is comfortable. No one feels like they've got the shirt. It doesn't matter how they play at the weekend, doesn't matter how good they are, doesn't matter if a forward scores a hat-trick. I still want a little bit of uncertainty in his mind as to whether he's going to start the following week, because he knows behind him there's a top player with a top attitude, a top mentality, a top physical base, playing our football, training our way, approaching every day properly, and there's a little bit of fear that player could take his shirt.
We'll go back to Keith Richards.
Hey, Coach. There's been a lot of new players on the team, especially on the attack side. Was just curious about maybe some of the players who have been there the last couple of years, how they're adapting to mainly Rafael Navajo and Darren Yappy, just how they're adapting to your new system, the new people, and how they've been doing their training.
Yeah, really good. Pleased with both of those guys that you mentioned. Rafa, which you'll see, is a slightly different, slightly tweaked role for him, and certainly trying to get him more involved in all phases of the game as opposed to just the finishing phase. And again, he's taken to that really well, and trying to get him to make certain different movements perhaps to what he's used to. But what we can't do is take away his edge and his smell for a goal, because that's his most important role for the team. So been really pleased with him. Again, he's another one who's approached the difficulty of training and the physical nature of training. He's approached that really, really well. Of course, I heard great things about him as a person, and I connected with him before I came out here, but like all of the guys, you're never quite sure until you see it firsthand, and I've been delighted with how he responds to stressful situations in training. And then the same with Darren Yappy. Again, he's a bit like Sydney. He's got that versatility within the system that we're going to play primarily, and so he's had exposure to different positions so far in both training and games in this pre-season, and he's taken to all of them well. There's loads of areas of his game that we will improve and we need to improve, but I like each day that I see a stronger mentality in him, and he actually had a big collision today in training, which showed his commitment to a situation. He made a great run behind, ball over the top, and it was a pretty nasty collision between him and the goalkeeper, and he's got a scar to show for it, that's for sure. So he's going to miss this afternoon's training session, unfortunately, because he's getting some stitches put in his forehead. But I don't mind that at all, and I think that's a sign of his strength and his mentality, and he wanted to continue training after that, which made me very happy. It was us that was pulling him out. So both those guys in a good place, but like I always say, they have to keep pushing.
Back to Braden.
Yeah, man, I'm not sure if Alistair Harris and Rob Birch have made it in Florida yet. They have?
One of them has, but we're 50% of the way there. So
Yeah.
Rob got in last night and had his first training session today. And then Ali, there's been the mystery of the missing passport, but it showed up yesterday. So he's on a flight tomorrow morning, and he'll be here tomorrow evening. So we'll be in a good spot from a staffing perspective once those guys arrive.
Good to know. In any case, can you just tell us a little bit about them, what their strengths are, and how they've been contributing, from back home?
Yeah, I think I know it's been difficult for them. It's been frustrating because they want to be here. They want to be a part of it. I think the sense of excitement that exists here at the moment, I think they get a sense of it, but they don't get to truly experience it and live it so far. And so I think Rob's delighted now that he's here, and he's had his first training session today, and those guys have been watching every training session live. We've been fortunate that we've been able to set up live stream of training, so they've been watching and they understand what we're doing in training. They have a good grasp of the players, but again, you have to experience it firsthand, and it's been great just to get Rob's insight as fresh eyes this morning based off what he sees from both the guys and the overall group from a tactical perspective and the things we were working on. And then Ali will be out here tomorrow evening, and then he'll get the same experience. And then I think we'll be in a great place from a staffing perspective. And in terms of their roles, I think they're both very varied, but Rob specifically coming in to help us with the attacking set plays and work with Chris Sharp on building a world-class set play program. But Sharpie will be more on the defensive side, and Rob more how we score goals from all moments and how we dominate those situations. And then Ali, just more of my assistant, and he has an unbelievable knowledge from a physical perspective. And I think a lot of the grueling activities that we put the players through, the players can't blame me. A lot of that's been been Ali's fault from back home in terms of the work that he's prescribing. He's the best I've ever worked with in terms of understanding of the game model and then working back from there. What are the physical demands of that game model that I want us to play? How do we put that in practice on a daily basis? So delighted that he's going to be here soon.
We have just enough time for a few more questions. We'll go back to Matt Wickham.
Coach, thank you. Again, wanted to try and get a breakdown of what you're seeing from the fullback room, and I believe it was Brian or John's question. Any roster holes you think are still left to be bolstered or plugged before the transfer or the season or window ends or the season starts?
Yeah, I think the fullback guys have been in a good place, and again, it's very it's difficult, I guess, because you guys haven't watched any of the games or seen, but I think once you do see the games, you'll see it's very different tactical role for the fullbacks, and we require specific attributes there, and all of them I'd say are in a period of learning and operating way too much in their subconscious. Well, the point we want to get them to is that, but at the minute they're on the pitch consciously thinking, and I think all the guys are in that mode, but I'd say mostly the fullbacks, because they have such a specific role in the build-up and how they help connect our game. So I can see a level of tension in all of them whilst they're playing, because they're as I said, they're operating in that conscious mindset. They're overthinking, and we all know that you play your best football when you're subconscious and you're on the pitch and you're in flow and you're not having to think too much. So, but I've assured them they have to stay calm. The only way you arrive at that spot is you have to go through that spell of conscious thinking, making mistakes, feeling a little bit tense, feeling like you are overthinking things, feeling like you are making mistakes. And I'd say all of those guys are in that spot. But what I've been delighted with all of them is, again, their work ethic, their mentality, the physical actions that we also want them to perform, how they attack, how they underlap their wingers, how they overlap their wingers, and then let's check, do they run back just as quick as they run forward, which is a demand that is non-negotiable, and all of them so far have done that. So we're in a good spot with that position. And I think in terms of recruitment, I would say for me it's across the board. Like, we have to be looking, what I'm saying to the recruitment guys is I want all options. I'm looking across the whole squad. For me, there's no one specific unit that we need to be looking at here. It's about bringing in competition. It's about, can we find players to increase the starting 11, but can we also find players that are just coming in to compete for shirts? And I'm certainly not willing to put limits on any units, and everyone is of interest to me at the moment. So we're looking at it very broadly, and I've no doubt players will be coming in soon.
We'll go to John Babiak. John? No. On behalf of John, wanted to ask, the club recently pulled out a hype video, and you, Matt, ended the video by saying, "We're ending the day on the line." Can you just clarify what that means?
So for us, that's our running, that's our physical work. Obviously there's a lot of physical work involved in our football, and then there's been a lot of sessions where the phrase "boys, we're on the line" is essentially, then they go with Felix and whatever prescribed running we have for that day. And on different days we're targeting different elements, like yesterday, because as I said, the training session was much more tighter areas, and we're trying to overload the accels and decels and build the power base in the players. That was more shuttle runs, and whereas today we ended this morning's session, the more extensive stuff, with more positional runs. So the different metrics that we're trying to hit for the different positions, and again, that comes from Ali back home and working with Felix and Kyle in terms of, we know the end demands of our game model. So we know what a fullback needs to produce to be elite in the way that we want to play. So let's prescribe some specific runs for that fullback, but the metrics we need in midfield and the type of running we need in midfield is very different to the type of running we need at fullback and on the wings. So all the guys were doing different positional runs based off either their position or just their current loading where they are in pre-season. So there's difference in each of those runs, but I use that phrase a lot. I guess maybe I need to stop using it as much, about get on the line, and that's just a signal to the boys that it's the physical work, but it's also now we're working on our mentality. Like, if we we're here to create something special and do something special. We can't have limits. We have to push boundaries. We can't stop after a 90-minute session today. And maybe other teams in that moment, they might be happy and satisfied and they might finish, but not us. We're going again. We get on the line. We do our running. And typically then we would, off the back of the load we did this morning, which was very high, we wouldn't typically have an afternoon session. But now we're going to go out, as I said earlier, and hit them with the hardest session they've done so far this pre-season. So I'm going to learn a lot this afternoon about where the guys are physically, but even more so where they are from a mentality perspective. And I'm excited for it.
We'll go to Patrick Radigan, and then we'll end with Keith Richards.
So I also just wanted to ask about a specific position, and in central midfield, not only from a physical perspective, but also just path to getting to the squad, and just you have so many players that have just very different backgrounds. What does that add to you? You know, the versatility of what you can put out in terms of a squad, just having so many players that just have unique skill sets and also just unique approaches to this game.
And do you mean specifically midfield or across the board?
Yeah, just in your central midfield, you just have so many guys who've either been offensive guys, come up as a defensive midfield type, but then they all just kind of have a variety of skill sets. Just what does that add to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to answer this wisely because Hamzat's just walked in, so I'll have to answer well. No, listen, we have good experience in midfield, and rightly, like you said, we have different attributes in there. We have versatile players, and obviously prior to Hamzat's arrival, we had Connor, Josh, and Wayne. As I said, he's really stepped up so far this pre-season. I have no prior reference of him, but just judging him off my own eyes, what I've seen so far, been really impressed with his mentality and how he attacks his daily work, and he's learning all the time and loads to improve, of course, from a football perspective. But between those three guys and now Hamzat coming in, we've got, you know, for me as a coach, I'm lucky because different types of player that can all complement each other, and again, this gives me the flexibility that I want tactically, that we can analyse an opponent, and although maybe to you guys it will look like the same performance on the pitch in terms of our dominant playing style, there'll be some subtle tweaks in there, and those tweaks will be linked to both the tactical movements we make, but also the personnel that we're using and the different chemistry in both central midfield. But that can also apply as the full-back and the winger, the two centre-backs we play, the left-back and the left winger, which 9 and 10 do we play, without giving too much away in terms of system. So as a coach, that's all you ever want, and going back to a recruitment style question, that's what we're looking for, and that's where I'm looking at, okay, what do I have at my disposal so far, and what are the gaps, what do I need, what challenges are we going to struggle against that other teams can throw against us, and then from there I can make shrewd decisions in terms of the guys that we bring through the door.
And then Keith, we'll go to you.
So it's just wanted to ask a question, maybe less so about the first team specifically and more about the whole organization, being the Raptors Academy and R2 as well. That's been kind of a big pipeline for the team over the past few years. Just wondering if you've had an opportunity to speak with Coach Eric Boucher with Rapids 2 and what that relationship is like and how you envision using all of those aspects to make the first team good in general.
Yeah, I think again the great thing with Eric is I've been able to have a lot more than just a conversation. We've sort of been in each other's pockets for the last couple of weeks because he's actually been with us as one of my first team coaches, which has been fantastic because obviously with Ali and Rob not being here for the first 2 weeks, we needed staff. So having Eric and Drew with us permanently for those first 2 weeks, brilliant. And you know, I think that led to a lot of great organic conversations between me and Eric and what he was seeing on a daily basis. And obviously every day we're in meetings anyway and going through the session plans for the day, and I'm explaining, those guys then asking me questions. They're also getting to know me and tactically what I want. So I'm saying stuff, they're then asking me to justify that, and we're having some great football conversations. And I think through that, Eric's probably got a great grasp now of how we're going to play, and he's been a part of the sessions. He's been sat in every team meeting that I've done. So we then had a final meeting just before the 3 days off. Me and him sat down for 2 hours and went through his whole impressions, no holds barred in terms of what he'd seen so far. And we worked out okay, exactly how much of that do we want to apply to the second team? Is there some bits we want to leave out that aren't as important, or do we go all in and say no, Rapids 2, they copy exactly what the first team do, and we make sure there's great alignment between the two squads, and then any players that move between the squads, either coming up or going down, there's so much familiarity in terms of how we're playing. So I was really lucky to have him here, and I haven't managed to go over and watch any of their training just yet because our schedules conflict, but the second that we do get to do that, I'll be going over and watching the Rapids 2 train, and obviously I've seen the guys that have trained with us, but I need to see the rest of the squad as well. So now we're in a good place from that perspective.